Honorable Ministers of Government, members of the Parliament, members of the Senate, Mr. Ashwat Jack, leader of the TOP, Mr. Makandal Daga, leader of NJAC, Mr. Prakash Ramadar, leader of the COP, and of course, ladies and gentlemen of the media, fellow citizens. Over the last several days, much has been commented and reported upon the Administration of Justice Indictable Offences Act 2011 and the proclamation of Section 34. I have remained silent to date on the matter, since I was of the view, respectfully, that any premature pronouncement could have been deemed injudicious and may have appeared to influence the outcome of my own investigations and examination of the issue. As Prime Minister, my first task was to convene a special sitting of the Parliament to repeal the proclamation of Section 34 as soon as the views of the DPP on this matter were made known to the Attorney General. This action was taken within 24 hours of the DPP's expressed views to the Attorney General. My second consideration was to examine all the facts and to conduct inquiries with various individuals, both within and out with the Cabinet, the government. Even as it was generally agreed that the piece of legislation was unanimously passed by both sides of the House and thereafter with full support of all members in the Senate, opposition, independent senators, questions still remain as to how Section 34 gained the support of all members of Parliament and as to why it was proclaimed early. To arrive at an answer and judgment on these matters, a number of considerations have to be made. We have to remember and recognize that we are founded in our democracy here in our country on three pillars of governance. Our parliamentary system of government, modeled on the Westminster system of the United Kingdom, has given us a legacy out of that colonial past, which we have in common with many of our sister nations in the Commonwealth. Such a system is premised, as I said, on three very important institutional pillars. And they are the independence of each being vital and fundamental to our democracy and to the rule of law. These pillars are the executive, of which the cabinet comprises the cabinet. Secondly, the legislature, that is the parliament. And thirdly, the judiciary. To put this in another way, the government, the parliament, and the courts are the institutions which are the tripod, or which is the tripod, upon which our democratic system of governance rests. They are separate and independent of each other and must hence be duly respectful of each other. And so I preface my comments to you and in my conversation with you today with these words so that you can appreciate and place the present controversy over Section 34 in its proper context within our parliamentary democracy. As Prime Minister and head of the Cabinet, I have taken cognizance of the debate both within and out with the Parliament and the comments made on the passage and proclamation of the Section 34, and there are two areas of concern which arise on the facts. The bill, including Section 34, was first passed in the House of Representatives with the full support there of the opposition. And that is to say, every single member present and voting on the government side of the benches, as well as those on the opposition side, registered a vote yes. As you will recall, it is a special majority vote that is required, and therefore the vote is not a simple yea or nay. The vote is actually put to every single member sitting in the House at the time the vote was taken. The Hansard will record the votes taken is that every single member present at that time in the House and voted in support of the bill with a version of Section 34, which was subsequently amended in the Senate, and there too in the Senate with that amendment to Section 34 was supported by every single member of the opposition bench, every single member of the government bench, and every single member of the independent bench, with the exception of one person who was absent on that day. So there were no abstentions, there were no nays, either in the House or in the Senate. Every single member of our House and our Parliament, therefore, with the exception of one independent person who was absent on that day, voted in support of the bill, first in the House, and then as amended in Section 34 in the Senate. That's the first point of fact. Thereafter, amendment being made in the Senate amendments were brought to the House, and that amendment was again voted upstairs in the Senate by every member present, and thereafter in the House by opposition and government members in the House. The rationale for this legislation was laudable, was a very laudable objective. It's okay, thanks. Was a very laudable objective of freeing up the wheels of administration of justice, and an attempt to address the intractable endemic delay in the dispensation of criminal justice. It was a bold blow for the promotion of efficiency. It was a notion subscribed by all stakeholders in the Parliament and in the Senate. With respect to the first point, I cannot speak for the Parliament as a whole. As we all know, it comprises not only representative government, but also opposition independent persons. Parliament is not the government, and the government is not the Parliament. And you will recall when I pointed out three pillars, that you had the Parliament, the legislature, which is distinct from, but comprises members of the executive of the government. Suffice it to say, and I note, that several persons who are currently voicing objections, some with unnecessary vitriol and vituperation, to Section 34, not only participated in the parliamentary debate on this matter, as we said before, they voted in favor of this measure. I note that some independent senators voted against the repeal of Section 34 when we went with the repealing bill. It was therefore the Parliament, in its collective wisdom, which gave birth to Section 34. And whenever the Act was proclaimed, whether partially or wholly, in its entirety, applications under Section 34 would have been possible. It targeted no particular persons. It was not designed to protect any sectional interests. It was a development measure in the administration of justice for the benefit of all persons who found themselves falling within the provision, as agreed to, as I said before, members of opposition, independent, and government members of the Parliament. It is important to remember that Section 34 could never have been proclaimed, would never have been proclaimed at any time, had it not been unanimously approved in the Parliament and the Senate without a single abstention or dissenting voice. So here we are. That's the first issue that has arisen. It was the Parliament and not simply the government which approved this particular act and the particular section. Whilst it would be unwise, as I say, for me to speculate on some of the reasons Parliament approved Section 34, I want to say outright that I reject and dismiss the idea that Section 34 was passed as part of some grand conspiracy designed to benefit certain individuals. Such a conspiracy would necessarily have to involve government, independent, and the opposition members. And if it would have been approved by all those groups, that kind of accusation, in my respectful view, is very fanciful as well as incredible. To come to an understanding that the government, the opposition, and the independents got together in some grand design to conspire to unanimously pass in the House and in the Senate the bill, including the amended Section 34. The opposition to this moment has refused to acknowledge that whether Section 34 is proclaimed now, then or later, their support of it, and indeed the independent centres, cannot be ignored. If Section 34 was bad now, it would have been bad January next year or thereafter, notwithstanding the fact that early proclamation should never have occurred. So having established shared responsibility by all members of Parliament for its very existence, the only other question which remains up to now, how did Section 34 come to be proclaimed earlier than intended? The answer lies in the Cabinet note dated August 6, 2012, tabled in the Cabinet and discussed on August 9, 2012, and the answer would lie in the discussions which took place at that time.